Okay, I'm back to continue this video on the Dahlia that we started a while back. And I'm going to add different layers now on the petals in order to call out some of the yellows and violets that we would use for shading and make it pop a little bit more. So what I'm going to use is this sketch that I had, and it indicates, at least gives us an idea of where some of the shading might be or where the color yellow could be applied. Because what I also want to do is make sure that I retain a lot of the white. The white is part of the flower, and if we get rid of it all, then we won't get the same effect that we see on this picture. So let's get started. I still have transparent yellow on my palette with Winsor blue and some Quin red that I'll be adding just to punch up some of the greens and stuff like that. So the yellow, I will put some here just on my glass palette here, and I can add some color here, but very lightly. And here's just a scrap piece of paper. Before I add it to my flower, I'd like to see first what it looks like. And to me, that's a little bit bold for certain areas. So I want to start very light because I can keep adding more yellow to brighten it up in the same spot, right? I can keep putting more. So I'm actually going to put a little bit more water in this mix. Let's see what that looks like. Maybe a bit more. That's pretty light, and it'll dry even lighter, so I'd say that's good. The areas that I'm looking at, just a little bit of shading on them, so I can start by putting in the color on the inside of the petals. And I like to, as the line indicates here, it's a soft blend. It's not going to be a hard edge. The hard edge, though, really shows up over here, but that'll be a different color. We're going to make that really dark. So for now, I'm just starting with the yellows. So I'm not really doing exactly as what is on here, but I'm just looking at the image, and it's guiding me to give me a few spots of interest that I could use as areas where we can put some paint on. Now, I did not loosen that up, but I still can. And I still can here. You can add water first, or you can take your brush afterwards and pull the color up or down. So here I'll put a little bit, but there is going to be another color that goes on top of here. For now, just put a touch of yellow. And now I'm really going to go by my instinct, in a sense, that I'm thinking about which areas are deepest in the shapes. So if this is an overlap, I could put a little bit of yellow on it, but I also want to retain white because the yellow is still a slight bit darker than the pure white. So now this has a little bit of blue in here, got added when I did the previous layer, so that's okay, it's all good. And this shape looks a little different from this one. That doesn't matter. And use again, a bit of your instinct here to say, where do I feel like putting some little dabs of light? Is there anything down here? Maybe, maybe not. Not much up here. Up here, it's close to the edge of the paper, so we're not going to be calling out that area as much. In fact, we might actually put a little bit more green on there to let it blend with the background. let's do that. So if I took a calligraphy brush and wet it, and if I tried to lift a little bit of this color, let's see what happens. Not much, right? Staining pigments have a tendency of not moving very well on paper after they've dried. But if I rub it a little bit, I can see now some of that green coming up. So if I want to just emphasize that color a bit more, I just have to add a bit of color. It's wet in here, so that's good. Maybe some in here as well. Because really all I'm trying to do here is show something that's going to be a bit more blurred into the background. And I think we're going to stop here. I'm going to wait till this dries. Before I do that, actually, so a warm, let's just say here that I have a transparent yellow and a quin red, and mixed together will give me a very warm yellow. If I don't put too much red, I'm not getting orange, I'm just getting a warm yellow. So while some of this is still wet, I don't want to do it there actually. That's actually a little bit too late. So we'll add this color after it dries. And it's just going to be more yellow, but just a bit punchier, because now we'll have contrast between a warm and a cool yellow on paper. Okay. So the next step is to basically let your painting dry, which I did, and then apply color in between the shapes. So all the parts that are surrounded by actual shapes, like for example, this is background. And so I've already taken the step to go ahead and paint all of these little openings, all of these little white shapes that go around certain parts of the flower. And as I mentioned previously in our class, make sure that you sort of look at the background, not the flower right now. We're looking at this area right here. And if you take a close look, you'll find that it's enclosed. So it's easy to identify just by looking at how the shape actually calls itself in here. And I'm going to show you, maybe with my pencil here, what that is exactly. So if you're having trouble seeing negative shapes, this is what you can do. Just pencil them in, and then you look on your paper and you will see on your watercolor paper, and then you'll see what parts you have to actually paint. So all of this would get color. Now I've gone ahead and done that once already. Okay, and then I will do it again. So you can see now that the shape that I'm talking about over here, I painted it like this around this shape. So just to reinforce what I'm talking about and to give it a second layer, because it's still fairly light, I will add some more color. So a bit more blue, and what colors I applied, just what's here, blues, yellows, and a couple of touches of red, just to give it variety. So let's keep going. Now I'm going to start from the top here, and if you don't want a really hard edge, take a larger brush, wet it, and then just make sure that where you're starting you're in the wet part. Now here, where there's water, the colors will be very loose. But around here, where I'm going into a dry area, the colors will be will be stronger, and they will stop unless I add water to move it. Okay. Okay, so now just going around, blue, just blue. Just start with blue, make it simple. I see a shape here that I could call out. It looks like possibly another leaf. We don't have to have a lot in the corners. And you can use your greens also. Here, for example, I'm looking at what's underneath, like the color I'm covering right now. And the color I'm covering had a bit more yellow, so that's fine. I can put more yellow there too. It doesn't have to be matching 100%, but we try to take a look at what's underneath, because then it gets brighter as opposed to duller. And the red is just, it just adds a little bit of interest, so feel free to model up your background. Okay, and now I'll come back. That's all wet in here. This I didn't continue, so let's make sure we do that. I see some sort of a shape here. I'm not sure if it is, but we'll put it there for now, and then we can remove it if we don't like it. Okay. And then a little shape in here. Starting light. Always light to dark. And then you feel your paper. Is it wet? This whole area here is a good one. It's easy to see. It's a good one for negative painting. Going a little darker here. And why? Simply because it is going to be the center of interest around the flower. So I can make some of those areas a bit darker, even adding a bit more red in here close to the edges of the flower. And down to here is very green, so let's just keep putting some green now. So I'm switching from blue to yellow or yellow to blue and adding little dots of redness. Because remember, red, blue, and yellow together will give you quite the neutral. Pretty much a gray-black. Now, by doing what I'm doing, these shapes are getting called out a lot more. They're a lot stronger. And now we're really starting to see all the details. So this is my second pass at doing the negative shapes. The first pass is not on video, but I showed you the result and I explained to you what I had done. And then the second pass is what I'm doing now, which helps to, it's the same thing as the first one that I did, it's just I'm adding more color. And let's see here. I don't want this to be too blue, so let's check it. Give it a little bit more yellows. Now remember, you can make puddles in here. It does make it easier, so that you don't have to be mixing your paints all the time. But you can also grab color as you go down, and you're really sort of making decisions on the fly. That's fun too, right? Okay, and let's get more red in here. I'll also put some more red here later. I don't really know what's going on here, so just painting around. And this isn't really the most important area of the painting, so what I'll do is take my larger brush and just soften some of those edges. I'm really, no water basically on my brush, and I'm just moving dry pigment around so that it softens the edges all around this area. Okay, and let's do up here, maybe more blue in here. So the next layer is going to get a lot darker, and we can see that it's already started to happen down here a bit. And maybe just a little bit of. When we're up on the high part of the painting, you want things to get mingled more. We don't want those really strong details up here. And I think that's it. I don't really want to put anything up here. I will put more, I think, in here. We will call the shapes out a bit more with some darker blues, more like this. And this is a beautiful color. I love that. That had some red in it, so maybe a little bit more of that in here would be nice, because the red just really deepens that green color, more of a mossy green. All right, and I'll let this dry and then I'll come back. Okay, so now this is dry. A couple little bumps, but mostly this whole surface is dry. I feel like there might be a little bit of water still inside the paper, but that's okay. We can proceed with that. The next step I'm going to do, which is a step that I could have done earlier on in this painting, or I could do it now. It doesn't really matter, but I want to add those beautiful shadows on the flower. And the shadow color that I'm going to pick is a violet. So the violet could be mixed from the Quin red that we have on our palette, which gives us a really beautiful deep purple color. And I don't want it to be red. I want it to be a little bit on the darker side, on the bluer side, just because the shadow is a shadow. And the shadow that I'm going to put on the flower here is going to be with hard edges. So as we see here, it's very hard edged. Let's just place that over here. So this petal has an edge, and we can draw that shape. It's a shadow shape, and it goes from, there's a couple of lines that are coming down here, and it goes from the side edge here, quite a ways down, but then it touches that middle line and then comes down into the next edge. Now you don't have to have it exactly as it's showing here, but it's just, it gives you a good idea of where you're going with it. So I'm going to start by painting it fairly lightly, just so I can tell what I'm getting here. And again, as always, testing is a good thing. So maybe just a bit more pigment actually. Testing again. I want this to be pretty dark. Okay. Now your choice of using Quin Red or Quin Rose. Quin Rose is a little bit more, it would give you a purple that is quite beautiful. This purple is going to be deeper, not quite as bright. And now I'm painting my shape, and the shape is in itself a part of the petal, very important part of the petal. I'm going on here pretty dark, and I'm just painting this on dry. And actually all the way down over here. I'm leaving a little line in here just to show off that line that we had. Don't have to. These are little highlights in the shadow, which is fun to do. And bringing that down maybe just a bit lower. Already starting to dry, so not much time left to play here. And this is dry. I could have made that point a bit sharper, but no, this is it. And here seems to be a shadow underneath that. I'm going to go a bit lighter. Should say not so much lighter, but just more water here. I went pretty dry here. I'm putting a shadow here, which is somewhere in here. The shapes here are tricky to tell exactly which one is which. That's okay, just use your instinct. And as we go down here, maybe we have a little bit of color in here. Underneath. And what we can do is also, in certain areas where it is darker, but not quite as pronounced, we can add shadow, but washed out a bit more, not quite as stark with the hard lines. So I'm adding some water here just to soften that up. And let's find another couple of spots to add this. Very light up here. Nothing like what we see at the bottom, but just a bit of color. And now just in some of these little areas, if you prefer also, put a bit of water first, because I really don't want these to get too hard-edged. And then a little bit more maybe in here. Because I'm looking at the design of the painting, and if we determine that the light is coming down from the top, then we can tell where the shadows will be. So the tips will all be very bright, and then some of the colors on the inside of the shapes will end up being darker with some shadow. Now I'm painting over top of the yellow. That's okay too. But notice that the color I get is slightly different. It's a little bit more grayish. And I feel like there needs to be something here that defines this shape. the way that it sort of closes. This little curve here. It's easy to get carried away with the purples, but if we put too much also, then we end up with a purple flower. So we don't want to do that. Lots of yellow still, maybe adding a bit more in certain areas that we now see might benefit from extra color, just to show, for example, these little bubbles here. It's really just a bit of color underneath. A bit of yellow. Purple against yellow is very contrasting. Those are complementary colors, and they work really nicely when you place them next to each other. And just going to put some in here. This pushes that petal into the background more. And at the bottom here, maybe just a few touches of the purple, but very light. This is more of the line that we're seeing here. Maybe just a touch in here. Let's make this one a bit stronger. There we go. And all right. Here, little crevices. Where it would be dark. Yeah, just everywhere where we feel that it helps to emphasize the shape beside it. And here I could put a tip with some yellow. Oh, that's pretty green. And that's not where I wanted to go. But that's good, actually. Bit of variety. Okay, this is kind of a separation, but I might just leave it as a shape for this this one, just simply because it would be part of the background, and because I didn't do it at the time of the background, it doesn't seem to make any sense anymore. So we'll just make this a little leaf shape or petal shape that looks like a leaf. Now the white, I don't know about that white here. Okay. A little bit of violet. Okay. All right, so let's leave that flower as is for now. Let it dry, and then we can analyze it again later just to determine if it needs more, less, or whatever. Okay, the next step now is just to give it another underpainting coat here, which is the background. I'll take a larger round brush this time, and really at this point I'm going to focus on the area around the flower, which is sort of that green area here. So larger brush gives you gives you more flexibility here to lay down larger amounts of paint. Okay, so I'm using the red now in my mix here. And let's take a look at this. And I still probably want to loosen up some of the areas. So I'll keep my smaller brush ready, but I do want to make this shape here quite a bit darker. Make sure you have enough pigment on your brush to help you get this layer down. Because if it's too dry, then you start seeing the streaks. And I'll bring it up to, let's say, about here. Now this color helps to clean up some of those edges, of course, because it's so dark. And let's just do the same thing here. I don't want to put it everywhere, but just carrying it down around some of the big shapes here. And in here. So what I also like to do is just smooth out the edges. And if you have some color here that's all prepared and liquidy-ish, you can add more pigment, a little bit of reds, just add what you feel like. And this creates interest in the background. It's just looseness that looks like whatever is part of all the leafy stuff back there. Not a lot of hard edges in here, more just colors mingling together. All right, so in this one, we can call out, emphasize the stem by putting a little bit of color in here, maybe in here as well. And let's add some more blue here. Blue with the red. Same color as we had over here. Blue, grab some more Quin red here. I'll put it on the side. That Quin red really turns the blue to a very deep, dark blue. And like I said before, the three colors together will definitely give you a beautiful black or gray. And I don't like what's happening here. My brush does not have enough water in it. That's the thing about these synthetic brushes. So if you have a synthetic brush, it is going to be one of the biggest differences that you will notice. And because it was so dry, I have to re-wet that area. Otherwise, it'll all be drying way too quickly, even before I can get my next stroke in. So the idea is to add more water to your mix, and also make sure that you're ready with water where you want to loosen things up. Otherwise you'll have streaks or lines, very definite line, that you don't know how to get rid of later. Anytime you want to stop an area, If you're not sure where you're going, add water just in front of that area, or above or below, wherever direction you're going in. That gives you the time to get the color in there. Okay. Okay, that can get another layer. And we'll stop here for now. Let's go to the top here. I want to add some color here, but not a lot. So let's get some water going, and all I'm going to do is add a little bit of color around these petals. And I really want to see that color moving, so okay. And here, instead of putting shapes, let's just loosely draw a few things going on in here. And then let's get back to here. A bit more blue. Calling out my shapes a bit stronger. And again here, there are some shapes up here, but I feel like they're not really negative shapes. We can paint those with your calligraphy brush and just make, grab some lighter greens, just sort of make brush strokes. And then we can add a bit more contrast in here afterwards, but all this is doing is a little bit of noise at the top. Okay, and I'll continue. I'll use my calligraphy brush here to make same color that we had, deep colors. But I don't want it everywhere. I want to start loosening it up about here, so let's put some water. See, now the difference between this brush and the one I was using here is that there's so much water in my brush here that it does not leave me with a dry wash on paper. So it's really nice. Big difference. If you don't have a calligraphy brush, you need to try that. And if you don't have one of these, which most people do, I think, have the synthetic brushes, you can try the two together and then you'll see what it is that I mean, what I'm talking about. Okay, so let's just maybe a little bit of blue here, just another little blue area here, leaving lots of negative shapes in this one on the edge here. And around that shape. Okay, so let's see, how much do we have here? I'd say at this point, we probably want to let it dry again, and then maybe give it one last pass. I'll put just a touch in here into the edges here, the corners. Don't need to have it everywhere, so just loosen that up. Okay. That's wet. A lot of that is still wet. So we'll wait till it dries, then we'll assess again. And I'd say that the last thing I'll want to do is add just a little bit of texture to the leaf shapes, and then that'll be it. Okay, I'll wait till that dries. Actually, no, I don't need to wait till that dries. Let's do that. Sorry, guys. Back to work. Now there's a stem here, so I'm going to make sure that I paint that stem around the stem to call that out. Don't want to do everything, but I do need to put some kind of form to it. Like in here also. Maybe just a bit of yellow in this one. I'm repainting them, but with gaps. And here, if I look at the stem, I have a really nice mossy green. So let's just see if we can get some of that mossy green. I'll take a smaller brush for that. Smaller brush is going to help me get in that little area. So I want some red, I want some yellow, and some blue, but I'm looking for a color maybe that has more yellow. Kind of like this here. Let's try that. I'm going to do it at the top here, and then I'm going to paint that shape as it comes down over the leaf that's underneath it. But as I get past it, beyond it, I can release that color. So it served us to call out the shape, but we still have the color showing here. The two colors here show that it continues to the top. So here's another one. Let's do this one. Maybe a little more green. Don't want to do too many. So this one will be, the reason why I'm doing this one is so that I can call out the shape that's beside it and the shape of this one, of this leaf. Okay. And that just makes this twig look like it's behind everything. Now, the next one, this one, needs something. Let's just make it a little bit yellower. And a little bit darker over here, maybe just to show the difference between the two shapes. And a little shadow underneath. Don't really want to paint them all. So the only places I'm paying attention to is where they overlap with something else. Like here. And this one looks kind of strange because it only has one color. Not a lot of color here necessary. Something underneath. And then this one, I'm just going to bring that line all the way down so that I can really determine the fact that there's a shape here. And maybe just some of this stuff going on in here. And I think at this point we might want to stop and just let everything dry, reassess, come back to it, make some small touches. But at the end of the day, we have our white flower. Oh, maybe one thing here was just to add, we never did add a little bit more orangey color into the center. I do like to do that, just to punch up with a different color. It's just the Quin red here showing through, and it helps to add a different color just to bring the eye to the center. A bit of darkness in here maybe. Okay. Now you can do lines also in your flower. You don't need a lot of line though. Just in the areas where we didn't darken behind. For example, here we could add some shapes. And let's see, where else? Where else do we feel like we want to call this out? A little bit of orange in here, maybe. It's all in the center of attention, like the middle point. It's where the eye is going to go. We have some bright yellows still in the painting up here. That might look a little odd, out of place. So that's an area we could switch up. Maybe call out some shapes in here of the flower. A little bit more. This is all dry. This is where you could spend a lot of time playing with your painting and adding small details here and there. But we have to be careful because as soon as we start doing too much, then that initial energy that the painting has kind of starts to disappear. So very cautious, just watching for changes that become too much. And I think I'm just going to stop here for now. I'll reassess, but I don't need to add too much more to this painting. I see here, this is wet, so I can't continue to this side. So yes, there's a continuation here that might have to happen because I started on here, but painting's wet. I can actually see that it's not mixing well on the paper. So is this dry? So actually I could add the blue here to continue this. That might help it. That is dry, so I can do that. All right, so, and then touch-ups, little lines to end up cleaning this edge here. It's pretty rough around the edges. All right, so I'm going to stop here, and I shall call this I'll call this finished for now, but we'll take a look at it later at the Canada Art Club. Okay, thanks for watching.